Hi, Evgeny. Welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Thanks very much, Brian, for having me. Yeah, my name is Evgeny. I'm based in Frankfurt, Germany, originally from Ukraine, which you will hear a little bit from my Russian accent. And I'm working in a US software startup covering the Central European market.
So, how'd you end up? Are you in Germany now?
Yes, I'm in Germany now since 1996.
Wow. You're a man of the world.
A little bit, yeah.
You got quite the education, too.
So I attended German university for my bachelor's. Spent one semester actually in Australia. Was
Wow.
less studying, more fun, and went to the UK to attend a pretty nice university, which is the London School of Economics. Because Brian, back then my mission and purpose was to become an investment banker, but it changed the course for a few events, and I ended up in software industry.
Yeah. You don't want to do all that boring stuff. You want to sell,
Exactly.
make some real money.
Real money, yeah.
And how'd you make that change? What was the catalyst?
So the catalyst was basically one of my friends in London said, hey, we got a newsletter from a US software company. It was BMC Software, and they're recruiting for a graduate program. And they're looking for a guy who is able to speak multiple languages, who is able to articulate some salesy stuff, and is eager to earn a lot of money. We thought it would be you. And I said, hey, forward this to me, but I'm actually going into banking, but I'm not sure about it. He's like, just give it a try. It sounds really interesting. And I just did it. I just sent my information there. They invited me to the interviews. I had some good conversations, and it really changed my mind in terms of what this is all about. And I realized banking is interesting, but this industry is just taking off because, you know, all this data information topics, it's just starting. And I thought this is where I want to be in.
Yeah. Because usually there isn't much correlation between investment banking and salespeople,
Absolutely.
software sales.
Absolutely. It's totally different. I mean, obviously, I was keen in getting into a sales environment in an investment bank, but, you know, it's totally different people. It's totally different environment. And I enjoy where I am today. And it was absolutely the right decision.
Yeah. And how'd you know? How long did it take to feel at home?
Actually, very, very early in that program, within months, because it was an intense graduate program with actual industry experts. So back then, BMC was kind of the school to learn sophisticated, hardcore, ground up sales methodology. And guys from PTC Blade Logic were still part of it. So that is a very known culture. So I basically grew up in this. So Medic and PG, those things are just lifeblood today. So it really caught me. Yeah.
Yeah. I worked for a VP that came out of PTC. So
no, well, you know what it is. Yeah.
yeah. The problem is we didn't have the traction that BMC had. So it was a little mismatch there.
Yes.
But and how long were you a rep?
I was a rep for seven years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was the impetus to go into leadership?
So there is a certain moment in time where you realize you actually have a growth that you feel, and you want to give that knowledge and information to guys who are starting. And in my given role right now, which is interesting because it's basically first man on the ground while accelerating that company, which is Kong. We are going to grow that region. So they needed someone who is able to build up the first logos in the respective market and pick up that velocity, transfer it to newcomers and new guys coming in, and leading them. So for me, it's really something that I really enjoy working with younger guys, giving up the knowledge to them, and I heard you saying in one of the videos, leadership, sales reps are making the real money, and money is good and it's important. You reach a
good
point.
Enough.
Yes. No, there is not enough, right? It's not about, it's really, if you reduce it to just one factor, of course it will be money, but it's multiple dimension game. And over the course of the last 2-3 years, the next topic arrived with me, which is basically a personal growth. And this doesn't necessarily has to do with money. And this is really about coaching, educating, and stepping up into bigger shoes.
And so today, do you have Germany or do you have all of EMEA or? So
today I do cover the Central European market, which is Germany, Austria, Switzerland, including Eastern Europe.
Wow. And how's that? Because on LinkedIn, everybody hits me about Germany. No matter what I say, they say that'll never work in Germany.
Yeah.
And I can't argue because I've never sold in Germany.
Right. So I can tell you that organizations that are natively medic driven and people PTC and the likes, they tend to have some certain characteristics on which they're higher on. And those people you barely find in the German market. So let's start with that, because the go-to-market is obviously aggressive. The velocity is different. And many would say those things wouldn't work out in Germany. This is a very, let's say, black and white analysis, because majority of things do work out. Maybe not the way we would apply the same concepts in the UK or US, because people are different, right? And there, again, you need to differentiate Germans and Swiss Germans day and night, right? So you really need to adapt to those markets and the people. Once you know the knowledge and the people, how they actually thinking, how things work here to get shit done, then it really works. But you need those people with that background and apply some intelligence and some humanity to it.
Yeah. And you're still early there. So what's the hardest part? Is it hiring? Is it learning the new technology, or?
So, due to the COVID situation we had, there's obviously different reactions from the startups about how to go to market, how hiring works. So we slowed down on the hiring on the sales side for the last months in order to see how do we actually go to market, whether this will resonate with customers, are we able to keep selling? It proved to be everything all right, even better than that. It really took up, so sales really accelerated, which allowed us to go out to the market again and start hiring. I would say, if you ask me about what's the major challenge, is really the brand awareness and the overall awareness of what we're doing towards this market. So where we are, we haven't invented anything new, right? We're doing things better. So it's from a next generation phase perspective that you need to look at, while all these companies, the traditional ones, they have the traditional vendors in place, the big ones, right? And this is something where you need to raise awareness. There is something, and the world has changed in that market where we are, which is the API and connectivity space. And that is the major challenge.
Yeah, I came from that space, so I sold it for probably 3 to 5 years.
Right,
it's a tough space.
So it is very technical. It's tough, and but it's not a sprint really here. It's a marathon, and we're seeing a lot of companies, traditional ones in Germany, transforming exactly in that area, understanding which value comes with it. But as you know, it's not only the technology that needs to be adopted. You have an organization that really is from a different decade. So it's a mind change. It's a political topic. So the ones that already made the shift, they're adopting it, and there's others, and leads us probably to a lot of things with regards to sales. When do you qualify out? How do you go about X, Y, and Z? So that's a big thing right now.
And how have you been able to kind of grasp all these new technologies? I mean, this is probably the most technical product you've sold, right?
Yeah. So I spent the last over 4 years with MongoDB, which was a nice ride. And I mean, database space is quite technical. This space where we are here is, I would say, even more technical. The good thing about it is where I spent the last years is basically, we're talking about similar concepts in terms of DevOps microservices, and is really not like rocket science to add on this type of layer, because we're getting closer to the client, talking to the backend, and it's basically, it is not really rocket science, I would say, from my background.
And you're still selling to the architect side versus the line of business, right?
Right. So that is basically one of the key challenges. If you would ask me, next to the brand awareness, is really about getting people from the product side, from the business side, to understand what we're doing. At least get them to speak first is the major challenge, because them getting on our website, oh wow, this is IT. Talk to IT. Right. So we are talking to developers, we are talking to architects, and that is, I would say, the first area for us to start those discovery meetings.
Yeah. And so you are hiring, or is it still early? Or are you just trying to get the first logos?
Right. So we've landed some first significant logos here in the DACH region. It is, in fact, one of the fastest growing regions right now in our organization, which allows us to have 1 or 2 headcounts for sales guys here. So at the moment, as we speak, we are going into the market and looking at candidates.
Yeah. And what do you feel makes you good at sales?
So there is basically my approach towards what's the fundamentals of sales, really. And the fundamentals of sales is really, I try to keep things simple and remove all the noise, because you know how complex it can get. But if you reduce it down to 2-3 core topics, then you really can succeed. And for me, this always has been focusing on the pain. Is there a pain worth solving in the account? And identifying a potential champion in the account. Who cares about that, and who wants to solve that pain, and what's this personal agenda in driving this? So if I have the first, the second one is the natural flow of identifying. And once I have both of them, we are already in a relatively good shape. Obviously competition left and right next to us, but we are already in a very good shape in driving a deal, because anything other than that is wishful thinking.
Yeah. So have you found any success when the champion isn't there?
So there is this famous phrase that a deal has never been done without a champion, right? In a lot of cases, Brian, there is a champion that you wouldn't have identified, you wouldn't have spoken to, because as you know, there is obviously different motions, and the area where I am and have been for the past years is this open source environment, meaning any type of guys in the organization would download it, play with it, find it appealing or attractive, or will be able to solve their pain. I wouldn't be able to speak to him because he did it in the background, articulated the value prop internally. I spoke to the guys who might be executing on it, but the real champion I haven't really met. And this is the key thing. In open source, it gets more complicated with that, really identifying who are those people. I haven't sold in my life without a champion in the account, but I have sold in the account without knowing who that is. Yeah, that happened.
And have you had an acid test to tell what a true champion is versus a false champion? Because you're selling stuff that a lot of people want to play with, right?
100%. And that happens a lot of times. So how I like to phrase it, if I go into the meetings and really get down those discovery meetings to reduce them, because obviously there is also a cost of sale attached to all the campaigns we're driving, is really to understand what's the purpose of him, or what's the purpose for him doing X, Y, and Z. So I like to be very transparent and to the point with the counterparts in the account, saying, look, if I would be to educating you about the technology, probably would be ending up as a developer advocate, maybe a university professor, but in my title, you see sales, meaning we should have some progression of what we're discussing here. So can you please let me know what would happen if you would get from me X, Y, and Z? So if I don't hear that there is a sophisticated process around evaluating a complex technology, and he's not willing to pull in a bigger round of people who should be hearing this, then probably it's like a science project of himself, or is just someone who is different to how we want to engage. And then it's perfectly fine to test the open source, but we cannot invest more time at that.
Yeah. And what has been like the difference between like a huge deal, maybe we take Mongo because that's probably your most
Sure.
recent experience, then kind of like because the natural thing on a complex deal is to do as little as possible. And that's the power of open source, is there's no resistance to starting.
Right. So so for this approach that you're describing here, Brian, you need to have a very sophisticated pipeline, right? Because there is a pipeline and there is a qualified pipeline, right? So the pipeline, the first stage is let them discover, let them play, because this is what's it for, right? It's for the community, really. But once it gets into the qualified stage, we want to really check the check marks in terms of have we met someone with power influence? Have we documented the pain? Have we documented what's the pain cost them today? So all those steps, if we haven't done it, it's really an unqualified situation in that sense. So we need to get the customer on a journey with us, which is an engagement process. And if we fail to do so, either we're talking to the wrong people, or there is basically no real initiative worth solving, because it's something maybe for the future. Yeah. So open source allows us to have those conversations, but this is the beauty here. We need to be sophisticated in qualifying out. Yeah, and if you ask what's a big deal, I mean, a big deal for a company our size might already start with around 300, 400, 500K, right? Because that is already a sophisticated deal. For a type organizational like MongoDB, that would be maybe something that you would add another 30 to 50% on top of this value, where things get complex. So as you know, the bigger the deal, the more decision makers or people with a say should be heard. But in general, any type of deal nowadays, as you know very well, you already have 5, 6, 7 people on average who at least should be heard.
Yeah. And I'm sure you went to the QBRs and you saw other reps present their deals. Did you get like a sixth sense of, what that deal is really going to pan out to be?
So that's the very nice thing, because we get into this little rooms, a lot of times no window. No, I'm joking. Well, that happens.
And a bucket of water.
We're sitting down there. The guys get an hour or an hour and a half to present. Already the first one that goes, you are spending 2.5 hours, because obviously everyone is keen of ripping apart every little deal. But generally, it's a very interesting situation for all of us. It's a learning environment. And from the outside, you're obviously seeing things much more clearer than when you're in yourself, as you get the big picture. Otherwise, you're narrow-minded and you are in, and you are obviously biased. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of crap, but obviously we're seeing a lot of good things that we can support these guys with. And we have quite a lot of talented and very experienced people in the company who has done the journey already before, meaning we are seeing and spotting what the pitfalls are, what we missed to do, what we maybe haven't done out of laziness or just because of all this complexity. Yeah. So we're helping each other, and those QBRs in our company tend to be a very, very nice experience, because it's a little group of people, and that's the fun part of the startup. Little group of people with direct access to senior stakeholders who are able to help and articulate what can be done better.
Yeah, but I always found that, even very senior reps, they've become way too comfortable. They'd have a champion that wasn't connected to the technology, and you were selling a technical product.
Yeah.
and there was
Yeah.
the technical win wasn't there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And all of a
100%.
sudden the deal would die. Because the
Yes.
natural thing is certainly when you get over seven figures is that for it not to close.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And how about like false champions where they don't have the political power to get it done economically?
Right. So that's a very good one, by the way. So when you get to see those guys and speak to them, you hear it when you get to meet them, you smell it. Yeah. What have they been gone through already in terms of purchasing decisions, internal fights? Who has acknowledged them while you do the other discovery meetings? And you come to realize relatively quickly, once you do the right discovery meetings, who has some influence over some topics. And obviously nowadays we are in this big DevOps and cloud environments. We like to say the as a service champion, meaning everything goes into SaaS, who is willing to do something more modern. You start testing people. And this is a very natural and human behavior, because you want to understand, you haven't worked with this guy, what can he get done in his organization, right? So what's really key here is this quid pro quo situation that is that you need to enforce naturally, ideally, because he needs something from you, you give it to him and you just go away. I mean, what can you ask afterwards? Nothing, right? So you need to enter this situation of exchanging, right? So if I do this for you, are you willing to do this for me? And this for me needs to be related to the sales process, where you need to have an advancement. And once I see there is no progression, it gives me a lot of times a very good feeling of maybe not worth spending the time here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too many people fall into like the service trap, where somebody asks for something and you just, you give them everything they want. And why won't they call me back? Because they don't need anything.
Yes.
They either want to talk to you or have to talk to you. There's nothing else.
Yes. So, I mean, we have those PG Mondays, Tuesdays, so we're calling out into the accounts to get some new meetings. And yeah, interesting. Send me an email. Send me some deck. I mean, it starts with it, right? It's already a first exchange. And I was like, okay, if I send you this, what happens then? And for many people, this is already an awkward question, right? Yeah. Well, I look into it, and then if it's good or not, how you define good, and then it's already starting this whole qualification topic. So really, to get to the point, is there something specific he's interested in, or was this just a generalistic thing? Just send me something along, just go away. Yeah.
And what do you think your superpower is as a salesperson? If it was like one skill or ability, or
it's to create really the trustful cooperation and collaboration with a client, because we're dealing here in this environment with new business, meaning the people we get to meet are new to us. The business contracts we're signing are the initial ones with the company. So trust is a major topic. And if they don't trust you, they might trust someone else. And in the first place, you need to win their trust before you start to have a technical win, or it's really about this personal relationship to someone. And most of the times I tend to have a very trustful, open collaboration in the accounts I'm working on. And that has proven to be very successful in terms of the engagements we have, which is before we're selling, and already in the post-sales experience, there is still this communication and collaboration with the client, and it's mutually very trusted, whereas this has maybe started just a few months ago, and that level of trust would maybe need a year or two to be established.
And how do you do that? Do you have a systematic way of doing it? Do you consciously build in certain steps, or?
Yeah, so it really is very much connected to this quid pro quo relationship with someone. So meaning someone wants to see, are you trustworthy? Are you prepared when you're coming? Are you reliable when it comes to delivering something? And when I do this, and I do it, try to do it very, very diligent, growing up in Germany, being very structured as well, helps me a lot, creates the situation with the client. Okay, this guy is coming back to me, as we said, but he's also bringing me into this process of being accountable myself. So people who are potential champions naturally find themselves and myself on more or less the same level of communication, collaboration, and they understand we're about to get things done here. So this is not about just playing around. They know this guy has done it before. He has this structured approach to this, and I can have trusted with him, we can do it. And it's really very tightly connected to this mutual exchange relationship.
Yeah. And plus, you know how to get those decisions done. They really don't. They're like...
That is exactly the point. I mean, I'm doing this, and these guys and on the team, they're doing this daily. This is their job. And the job of these guys in the organizations, which tend to be thousands or 10,000 employees, is, well, it's not daily, right? And it's also perfectly fine to articulate this to them, that this is my job. I can help you with that, as long as we have this trustful relationship. If you can open to me this, and this gate in your company, I will ensure you this will be the outcomes of this. Are you willing to do that? And that comes back to what you're saying. We're used to do this. It's our job. Right.
And I think too many people just react. What would you like to do next? Right. Yes. And they don't know what they want to do next, other than, get an order.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Hey, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect with you and follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's basically the platform of choice, number one. And I'm on Twitter. So that is my preferred platforms of usage.